we are all in the same boat about to drown because our government has poorly handled this.
Hello everybody, welcome back to First Gen Failures. Today we are going to be talking about a question that is facing our nation and is facing people globally, even though some are taking it better than others. The question is, should we reopen schools? We live in Florida, Duval County specifically, and as of Monday, July 20th, Duval County has had 17,245 confirmed cases, with all of Florida clocking in at a whopping 360,000 cases. So just from these numbers, how are they going to reopen schools and why are they reopening schools? We're going to just have a friendly little conversation about it right now. First, we're going to just talk about our district. We're going to put a timestamp in the description for when we start talking about the national conversation about whether or not we should reopen schools. But for now, we're just going to talk about Duval County's approach to reopening schools, the options, and the pros and cons of each of these. So, okay. Trisha, you want to take it away?
Yes. So there are three options as of right now they've given us: Duval Homeroom, Hybrid, which then transitions into full-time, and Duval Virtual Academy. So starting off with Homeroom, the pros are that you stay enrolled in school. It is all online learning, kind of how it is similar for us fourth quarter. You are given the option to return in-person schooling each quarter. So you can assess and say if you want to stay home, you can stay home. But after each quarter, you can be like, okay, now I want to go to school, and you can go to school. However, this transition is going to be really hard because the courses may not be the same. The learning styles may be different. Some other things to consider are the fact that you will not, or most likely will not, get your promised schedule or teachers. Electives are not guaranteed. And many specific programs, such as the one Aileen and myself are in, IB and AP, are not considered. So most of Duval County, I guess most of high school students are, standard, honors, maybe an AP, but there's a small percentage of us in IB. So taking the vast majority of the population in consideration, they're not really looking out for IB kids. There are rumors floating around that if you go to online school, you're not going to have the same teachers. And knowing Stanton or any fast-paced school, you're going to fall behind, making a transition that much harder. Another thing I want to add is, as of right now, 10 to 15% of all Duval kids have signed up for a homeroom, which means most of the population, as of right now, and there's obviously a lot's going to change from now to Friday, only 10% of us have signed up for homeroom. So most of us are going to school.
The big thing with homeroom is that you really need to be able to teach yourself. That's the bottom line, is especially if you're in high school taking a really difficult course load, you really need to get comfortable with using your online resources and teaching yourself a lot of the material, because it's just very difficult to fully grasp what the teachers are trying to convey when it's online. I can't even imagine what it would be like for the younger children, like the kindergartners and the second graders. That would be impossible. But moving on to the next option that we have, hybrid or in-school instruction. As we noted before, the vast majority of students are opting in for this. And pretty much what it's going to be is in-school instruction 2 days a week, home learning for the other 3 days while the school gets sanitized. And that's only until Labor Day, when it goes back to 5 days of in-school learning a week. The issue with this is that you have essentially all of your students at school at the same time. If they had split it up in a way that there was only a portion of the students at a time, a smaller portion, it may have worked. But this, having all the students at once, it's devastation waiting to happen, honestly. You could very well get infected because of the very high volume of students attending school at the same time. Yeah. Masks and face coverings are mandatory only in some classes. For example, in PE, recess, band, music classes, you're not going to be required to wear masks, which does make logical sense. But with the current state of our nation and our state especially, it's unfathomable that you would even consider taking off your mask during this kind of time. And masks are only going to be provided for kindergarten through second graders. So if as a high school student you forget your mask at home, you're kind of screwed for the whole school day. Sports are still happening. The days that you are at school, there will still be activity buses. Transportation is happening as per usual at this stage. You will get your promised schedule. No classes and electives are taken away as they are with homeroom. And teachers may still vary depending on what they decide to do, as it's up to them whether they would like to teach in person or online. Students are also not informed on their teachers' decisions, so you can't know in advance whether like all of the teachers that you're going to have are either going to be online or in person. For me, this is a pretty big part of my decision. I have a really close connection with a lot of my teachers and am really looking forward to getting their specific instruction. And if I don't know whether they're going to be choosing homeroom or online, I can't really make a very educated decision about what I want my final year of schooling to look like. Well, high school schooling, but
Yeah.
and it's better for a lot of in-class learners, but at what cost? Most people who want to go have also been notoriously irresponsible during this quarantine summer, which even like increases the risk of getting COVID from attending in-person schooling even more. Like the children that tend to opt in for hybrid are, yes, they are in-class learners, but again, they have also tended to be the kinds of people that have not been adhering to guidelines as strictly as one would hope. So
Third and final option is virtual, Duval Virtual Academy, I think.
mhm.
And so that means you rescind your spot at school. So if I went, I would no longer be enrolled at Stanton. It's similar to FOVS if that's what you prefer. If you're 100% sure that you don't want to return to physical schooling in the upcoming year, this may be the option for you. Maybe you have someone that's extremely high risk, or you yourself are a high risk case. This might be the smarter option to consider. But students can still reserve their spot at their respective schools for the next 2021 to 2022 school year. If you want to do virtual for 1 year and go back to school, you'll have your spot there for you.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, we are very underprepared, and families have very little information to base their decisions off of.
Yeah, and a big point of this is that, a lot of students rely on these kinds of AP and IB classes for college credit to greatly decrease their costs of going to college, especially during a time like this when a lot of people are under financial stress. So this inability to make a accurate decision can impact your future, can impact how much you're going to pay for college, your college decision, so on and so forth. So it is kind of problematic that we have such little information to base our decisions off of, and we're essentially just taking a shot in the dark.
As of right now, it's so thoroughly debated. It's just been really stressful, especially for people who are class of 21 like we are, seniors, who want to have a senior experience. Also, I want to note that we are recording this July 21st. I know that there's been a meeting in Duval County today to see whether they should extend summer, make hybrid longer than Labor Day. So just so that you know, this is the information we have as of right now, but you should always check the Duval County website for new information.
We're going to move on to more of the national conversation, like what's happening on news anchors and conversations happening within the federal government about whether or not we should reopen schools as a nation. Obviously, Donald Trump has come out, repeated again and again how he wants to reopen schools, how it's going to be perfectly fine, just reopen all the schools. Personally, I do not agree with this at all in any sense of the word, but we're going to go through some of the arguments for reopening schools that are offered up during these conversations and some of the concerns for reopening schools. So, Trisha, do you want to talk about some of the arguments for reopening schools?
We know that in-school learning is crucial for children's psychological, physical, and academic advancement and growth. When you go to school, you're in a school mood, you're in a school environment, and you just feel like doing school most of the time. You have important classroom discussions, assessments, and other things which are lost if you don't go to school. There's also less money spent on giving students in need of laptops and Wi-Fi's. We have not really done well with this. I know the online school, when we first started in March, was a really controversial thing because a lot of low income, high needs students were not getting the laptops, chargers, anything they needed to continue academics. And for many kids with disabilities, families with siblings, and not enough electronics to go around, in-school learning is an obvious option, especially for working parents who have to work and have to attend their job. They have to drop their kids off somewhere, especially if they're young.
Yeah.
So that's another point to consider. Kids do not get as sick on online school, but they still have the probability of spreading it. Like, I don't get sick, but I could come home and give it to my mom, or my dad, or my brother. So think about how many people you could be spreading it to, even if you don't get it yourself. Younger children, such as those in kindergarten, don't have much learning they can do online or in a workbook. Most of their curriculum is learning to take turns, sharing toys, playing together, finger painting, learning how to read. You can't just do that online. And also, there's something to be said about spending 8 hours a day on a laptop as a young child. I just don't think that's good for development.
Yeah, so those are definitely very strong arguments for reopening schools, but I'm going to discuss some of the concerns for reopening schools. Definitely the biggest one is coronavirus. Obviously, we all want our kids to be learning, growing psychologically, physically, academically, but they can't really grow if they are ill with the coronavirus. And unfortunately,
COVID?
yeah, hopefully do not, nothing bad happens to them. But they can't really do that if they're falling ill constantly and spreading this virus that's going to take numerous lives. Like, what is the price of that? What is the price of limiting your child's psychological growth just for like a year or so that people can, continue to live their lives? There's also a lot of pressure on teachers to keep students socially distanced, constantly putting themselves at risk. Remember that teachers in America do not get hazard pay despite being incredibly overworked and incredibly underpaid. I can't even believe we still have teachers.
I know, literally, that's one of the scariest jobs for me, like a teacher who's underappreciated in this nation.
Yeah. But that's a different problem. The overworked and underpaid, that's a different problem. But just the fact that teachers are often not even given the choice to decide whether or not they're going to show up at work. They're just fired on the spot. And first of all, it's not moral, but it's a very big problem and a concern for opening schools. Kids can also, yeah, we talked about this. Kids can easily spread the virus to their family members that are at higher risk than they are. So that's another concern for reopening schools. Kids might be asymptomatic. They might not really show that many symptoms, not get them sick, but they could cause a lot of deaths just by just being there, being at school. And a lot of people, including my family, were concerned with sending students back to in-person school without having any confidence in the government response to this pandemic, especially in the state of Florida, especially in the nation of America. We have no faith or confidence in the way that our establishments are dealing with this. A lot of businesses and government agencies have reopened and then had to close again because of this incredible spike in cases that we're seeing. And it's just that, why should I trust what the government is telling me to do to go back to school if they've handled this so poorly, when I see people pretty much being swatted down like flies around us? Like, it's just insane that we're trying to make this decision without any care for what people are going to face.
Yeah, I also want to note that teachers themselves, every day, if you're a teacher and you're an elementary school teacher, they get sick all the time. Their kids are literally germ filled, and then having to keep kindergartners, even 10-year-olds, socially distanced, and having to explain to them what their life is online if they're gonna do this stuff, that's scary to me. And I bet you teachers feel the same way. The pressure that they must be under, because we don't know anything, but imagine teachers whose jobs are on the line. They don't know anything either. We are all in the same boat, about to drown, because our government has poorly handled this.
Yeah, and they are truly essential workers. Teachers are absolutely essential, but they need to be given the option to decide whether or not they're going to be pursuing online or in-school learning or teaching. That's just, honestly, I think should be a guaranteed right to them to be able to make that decision for themselves and not have to put themselves at risk. I know we heard about on the news a couple days ago how these 3 Arizona teachers had gotten sick, and one of them actually passed away as a result of having to teach in person. So yeah, just kids, especially the little ones, can be messy. Their spit is everywhere. They deserve to be protected from that, for sure. And
I agree.
yeah, so that was our conversation about reopening schools. A bit of a shorter episode today because we just wanted to do a bit of a sidetracking and just talk about this big conversation that we're having in our district and globally, nationally, pretty much on every scale. A lot of countries are obviously taking it a lot better than we are. I know Norway's doing pretty good right now. South Korea's
New Zealand.
just yeah, New Zealand, they are just back to normal. If anything convinces you that you need to wear a mask, it's that you have the possibility to push our country back to normal.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was our episode today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Follow us on Instagram at FirstGenFailures, and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts if you liked it or if you didn't. So
thank you, and we hope that you make a good, educated decision. Make sure you're not doing just what your friends are doing, because you need to make sure you do the best option that fits for you. We hope that everyone is safe, and yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.